Welcome back to the Smarter Marketer podcast, brought to you by Rocket Agency. I'm your host, James Lawrence. Welcome back to the Smarter Marketer podcast. I'm here today with Stuart Jaffray. Stuart, welcome to the pod.
James, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited about this one as well. So Stuart is Managing Director at Green Hat. Founded in 2001, Green Hat is a highly regarded Australian B2B marketing agency, working in areas like B2B strategy, content, ABM, automation, digital, and more. Green Hat works with clients such as Nestle, NextDC, Superloop, Mimecast, and Corn Ferry. Stuart, welcome to the pod. Really keen to dig deep into B2B marketing in 2023. I think you've got a really interesting career journey, and I think the different roles and the places you've worked since you started in your career kind of shape what you're doing today and are very relevant to the types of work that you're doing at Green Hat with the team. So I think it'd be awesome just to start with that, like just to talk about your career and the roles and the influences and where you've been.
Yeah, sure. That's a nice, easy one to kick us off, James. Thank you. So look, the short answer to that is DM agency, client media agency, B2B agency, but there's obviously a lot more.
We're done. Podcast over.
I know, exactly right. So there's a mix in there of creative agencies, client, media, and then into B2B. So I kickstarted my career in a DM agency as it was back then. We were running databases, fax-back campaigns. Can you believe they were a thing? I still wake up some nights thinking, I wonder if there are still some responses down the back of one of the machines that we never actually found.
Well, we moved. We used to have a fax machine back in our old business, and then someone said there's this service which is like it PDFs it and then emails you the copy of the fax. And it was frighteningly recently that we actually disabled that service. It was going to a mailbox that we didn't attend anymore. But we'll still, I don't know, it's like the soldiers that were found in 1947 you're still fighting in the Second World War.
Exactly right. I reckon there's still some subscriptions and things for clients that are just sitting there somewhere that we never knew existed. So look, the DM agency side, so started in London and then I moved to Sydney. Again into a DM agency. I mean, they're now called CRM agencies and other things as well. But it was, for me, when I started, it was direct marketing, and I had studied accounting and I had studied marketing at university. And for me, it sort of combined the two things. There was an accountability, if you like, and a countability about what we were doing from a marketing perspective that I really enjoyed. So it enabled me to stimulate that part of my brain. And I really enjoyed the creative side as well. So if I look back now, what that had started to demonstrate to me was sort of how you could start to, I guess, as a marketer, bridge that gap between creativity and business strategy. And I think that's sort of fundamentally a lot of what we're tasked to do. So that was the start of the journey. I reached a stage so Simon Richards Group was the agency I worked for in Australia, in both Sydney and then in Melbourne. And I'd reached a stage there where I had this just pang to go client side, if you like. Grass was greener over there, as I saw it at the time. And I'd been working on a couple of auto accounts. I was actually approached by BMW to go over there and head up CRM for them. And this sort of desire to go and see what it was really like on client side, because I hadn't done it before, and B, obviously the call of BMW, which I mean, just a wonderful brand, and it was a privilege to work on the BMW brand for what ended up being nearly 10 years for me.
Yeah, wow.
It was just too big an opportunity to sort of turn down. So I went over there initially as the CRM manager, and again, look, I'm dating myself already in this call, right? I've talked about faxbacks already. We were doing a lot of direct mail.
You did start when you were 5, though. So.
Yeah, that's it, exactly right. Thank you, James. So kind. So a lot of direct mail, but the part that I started to really become fascinated about there was the insight and the intelligence that was sitting within the CRM. At the time there, it was in an Oracle database, and essentially how untapped that resource was. But also for me, the other part within an auto was that how much of what we were doing at the time was outbound sort of post-purchase communications, rather than actually using the power of what we had there to identify people that were likely to be in market, because we had finance data in there and insurance data and all of these other things. You've got service data in there, and how we could actually start to bring this together to drive sales and repeat sales from within the audience. So we went aggressively down that journey. Over my sort of tenure there at BMW, I then took digital. So digital at the time I joined was separate. That came into my team. And then over time, I took in sort of brand and product, and ultimately sort of became the CMO of BMW, which was a job that I had there for just over 3 years. And that was, look, it was a wonderful experience. As I said, BMW is an amazing brand. The product's fantastic. The opportunity to be able to sort of steer that, if you like, within the Australian market was just phenomenal for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I look back at that period really fondly, and I'm still a convert. I still love the product, right? I'm fairly one-eyed about that from an auto perspective as well. But again, I'd reached a stage then at BMW where, you know, you've had that role for 3 years. What's going to happen next? And one of the areas for me at BMW where I had significant influence was in media. You are taking creative from global, and we're repurposing as we sort of fit in the Australian market. But you had complete autonomy really around the sort of media side, and I developed a sort of keen interest around that, and the opportunity existed there for me to go over to Starcom to become managing director for them in the Melbourne market. And I'd plateaued at BMW. I needed to do something else. It was, you know, go and do something else at BMW. I didn't want to take a sales role or something like that at BMW, go overseas with them. I've got a family here. And so having plateaued there, the opportunity came up for Starcom, and I took it. And I think, as with moving from Simon Richards Group as it was into BMW, the move from BMW to Starcom was something that the learning curve again was immense, because you've sat from the outside watching the media and influencing the outcomes with the media agency, but it's a very different beast once you're inside it. Culturally, it was, I'd worked in agencies before, obviously, but culturally, coming out of a suit and tie, fairly structured and organized business as BMW was into a media agency, the cultural change was something that took me quite a while, I think, to be fair, to adjust back into. But and again, over a 3-year period there, the learnings for me were immense. And I think that part of that, working within the Publicis Group at the time as well, the investment that was going on into things like Epsilon and the tech stacks there, which I guess sort of built out some of the things that I developed early on from a data perspective, coming from a direct marketing background. I was fascinated by, and I really enjoyed those sides of what we were able to do there to solve client problems in really interesting and fascinating ways beyond spots and dots and media, right? So that was cool. That was a really
what were some of the misconceptions you had, I guess, having been client side for so long? I imagine that you know, you're buying media on behalf of BMW using an agency like the one you ended up going to. Like, what were some of those learnings, I guess, that you kind of thought, well, this is very different being on the other side of the fence now?
I think that clients, and sitting on the client side, you see the output from the agency, which is, you know, at the end of the day, it's 20 slides of PowerPoint. It was 20 slides of PowerPoint, probably 10 of them are of value, and there's a media schedule at the back, right? That's that. I'm distilling it down to a really simplistic sort of version of what you get out. There's a rigor that exists that you don't see. You scratch the sides of that as a client, and so the rigor that exists within the media agency to get to the recommendation, I think, is something that is very, very easy sitting on the client side to sort of dismiss at times, and the discipline that goes behind that to get there as well, which was something that I think that was quite eye-opening to me. I had what I thought was a good understanding of how they got there, but there's a lot more to it. I think the other thing as well, which I was staggered by, was the we have this notion of programmatic, and it's not AI, right? It's programmatic is heavily influenced by a human being, and the amount of work that pours in from the programmatic teams to get to the outcome, and the amount of human intervention that's actually required there. I was staggered by that. I sat with some of the team over a period of days, actually, and I actually just sat next to them to see what they were doing, and I would sit there and go, my goodness me, that's not being generated by a machine. There is a human being that is required to influence all of this to get to those outcomes and make the decisions, put the copy in, all of these things, right? So there were areas like that I had a lot more respect, I think, for what they were doing than necessarily what I'd had before.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then the move across to Green Hat. What kind of spurned that?
Okay. One more thing very, very quickly as well. I think the other thing there, coming out of BMW, right? You've been there for 10 years. I knew a lot about auto. I think coming back into an agency, my exposure across other categories, again, there, FMCG as an example, banking, finance, etc., and retail. One of the things I realized very quickly was that at BMW, it had been very easy to become fixated on what the other autos were doing and not necessarily taking enough inspiration from outside of category. There are things, the deployment of sort of growth theory from the FMCGs that I look back at now and say, I wish I'd had some more of that when I was at BMW in my kit bag. You rely on the agencies to be provoking that around you, but as a senior marketer at the time, I wish I'd had more of that because I could have driven more of that agenda myself. So that's the other big thing that I got out of coming back into an agency environment was just that the application of marketing science in different ways across different categories, and sort of being able to just sort of suck all of that up and work out where to deploy that in the right way across different categories and different clients. So then look, I think I'd reached a stage at Starcom where I wasn't convinced that media, for me personally, that was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I had enjoyed it, but I had reached a stage there to say, I'm not convinced this is me and my future, right? So the opportunity again, so Green Hat, it's an independent agency, so it's very different to the construct that I had and the structure I had around me within the Publicist Group. But the thing that really appealed to me there was it's a full service agency. So I look at that and say, okay, when you look back at where my career has come so far, here's the opportunity to take all of that and deploy that for clients. So from a strategic perspective, from a creative perspective, from a media perspective, from a digital perspective, from a CRM, and bring all of that to bear for our clients. And in a space that I was really fascinated about around B2B, I'd scratched the edges of B2B at various stages of my career. BMW would have been an example of that. Clients that we had at Starcom were primarily B2C, but they had a B2B component to what they were doing as well. So I was really interested in that. And my landing into Green Hat, once again, this has been a common theme. I got in there and I thought, crikey me, there is so much I didn't know and didn't understand. And so again, you go through this like a sponge, just soaking up as much as you can sort of really quickly around that. And I sort of started to realize, and I learned very quickly there, that so much of what I had learned so far was additive to the way that you could go, you would approach B2B, but there was a lot about B2B that I needed to understand and know very, very quickly as well. And so I've been there for nearly 2 years now. And at the moment, my focus is absolutely in. I think I made the right decision, right? It's B2B. I'm fascinated by the space. There's an awful lot of noise and growth around B2B marketing at the moment. the application of marketing science into this space. There is more of that available to B2B marketers than there ever has been before via Ehrenberg Bass and Benem Field's work, etc., which I'm really enjoying. So no, it's been a great decision, and there's a complexity to what we do in this space, which I'm fascinated about as well.
It is a very interesting space. I know you've got some strong feelings about the next question. It's just the same, isn't it, as B2C?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely the same.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the difference, and I guess Green Hat's perspective on just why B2B is so different to B2C marketing.
I mean, look, at the heart of this, and you'll hear this, right? And I hear people talk to this a lot as well. We're still dealing with individuals, right? Yes, we are. Totally. And human beings, regardless of whether you're making decisions for yourself or for your business or for your family, there's a rational and emotional part. Then the emotional part often outweighs it. I mean, you can see that. You see that time and time again. So there are similarities there, right? There's no question about that, because we're still ultimately looking to influence the behavior of human beings. So tick to that. Where it is different, though, okay, first of all, you're dealing with a buying group. You're not dealing with an individual. Now, if I go back to my time at BMW, typically that was a complex consumer purchase, because you're typically dealing with two people. Most car purchases are a sort of family purchase. So there are two people and maybe some smaller influences, your children in the background as well.
And a USB charger for their iPad.
That's it, exactly.
Which was I took my kids to a showroom, and that was the driver, and I was because there were USB chargers in the back seat.
How loud does the stereo go?
This is not dictating the decision, kids. I'm sorry.
And then the other complexity within an auto is there's typically two cars, because you're trading one and getting into another. So that's about as complicated as a consumer purchase goes, right? In B2B, you're dealing with a buying group. Our study, so we run at Green Hat what we call the B2B Outlook Report. It's a study that we've run for 13 years now on an annual basis. Off of the back of that, I can tell you that the average size of a buying group that the participants of that study are dealing with is 8 people. So between 5 and 8 actually is your average. But we have some clients where we know there are 30 people involved within that buying group, the buying party. And so what we have to do, and the complexity there from an agency perspective and for our clients, is to stitch together the signals, the buying signals from the individuals within that buying group, and influence them over time. And when I say over time, some of the decision-making processes here are up to 3 years, right? So we need to be able to, you need an idea and you need a communication strategy that can stitch together across 30 people within an organization over a 3-year period to help to influence their decision making. The other part there is the deal size, right? I mean, you can be dealing with a purchase which is where ultimately someone's going to sign off on a tech purchase that is multi-million dollars over multi-years. Now, so that's fairly significant. And if I was to simplify this completely, I could walk into Coles now and make a spontaneous purchase on a product and bring it home, and the kids go, I don't like that, and I'll go, that's a bit of a shame, it cost me $3, I'm going to tip it down the sink. If I make a decision like that in the B2B world, I'm going to lose. That was the wrong decision for the business. I could strangle the business with the implementation of a piece of tech that doesn't actually deliver for us. I can lose my job. There are some significant differences there in terms of the implications of the decision that we're making. Underneath all of that, though, I'll come back to where I was earlier on. There's still a core emotional component to that. So the decision making, that I think that where we often go, though, given all of those factors in B2B, is highly rational, highly product-led communication. I think that's where the mistake comes. The emotional side of influencing behavior and consumers and the buying group is as important within B2B as it is within B2C.
And do you feel that's changing? Like, do you feel that the B2B marketing, I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the distinctions, those core distinctions between, your classic B2C, your classic B2B. But do you feel that the strategies, communication, branding, messaging, like Is that changing in B2B? Like, what are you seeing? Like over a longer period, like say over the last 5 years, are more marketing environments getting that right and tapping into those better?
I think so. And my view on that, I said there's more marketing science available now in the B2B space than there ever has been, right? So I think that on that basis, we're operating somewhat in a sort of golden age there. So an important point there if you look at some of the theory that exists now, and I don't think it's actually just theory as well. So if you look at Ehrenberg Bass, they'll tell you that 95% of your audience are out of market, only 5% of your market or 5%, sorry, of your audience are in market at any time. And the way that then gets sort of framed out is to say that if you're not focusing on the 95%, you're ignoring your future cash flows. And I think for too long, B2B marketers focused very much on the 5% and ignored the 95%. There is now a realization that that's a mistake because you're playing the sort of law of diminishing returns. I understand why it happens, though, because the other part that is different within B2B is that B2B organizations, B2B businesses are typically very, very sales-led and sales-dominated, which drives this focus back down to the 5%. Stronger B2B marketers can tackle that head on, and you know, your sales leaders and particularly your CFO as well, and your CEO should understand that if that's all of my investment is going there and I'm ignoring the 95%, what does this look like for the business in 3, 4, 5 years time, right? So that's an important sort of piece for us there. The other one, look, Binet Field, and whether you agree with the absolute numbers on this or not, they'll say what 45% of your budget should be then going into brand and 55% in activation. That's different to consumer, but it's reflective of the fact that the time to convert a deal is so much longer. So you actually need to put more into the activation piece because it takes longer to do it.
Yeah.
We're having more and more, and I would say not even over the last sort of 5 years, but I would say over the last 12 months, we're having more conversations with B2B marketers that know and understand that and are having the right conversations internally and are therefore then empowered to have those discussions proactively with us rather than the agency sort of continually sort of trying to sort of push that agenda back into them.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. Like, because in the 95-5 rule, they're all rules of thumb, right? And obviously it depends on what the product is and what the market looks like. And I think no exaggeration that it's probably the 99-1 rule in certain areas, right? Correct. Like it's no extreme. And we see and hear the same thing from our clients. And I do believe that most experienced marketers that we're dealing with, they kind of know this stuff now. And I think to your point, the studies are better, the data's better, the reports, the research to actually back up the story that, you know, only 5% of our market is actually looking for a product or service like us right now. The long and the short of it type stuff, the idea that, you know, whether it's 50% brand building activities and 50% demand gen, or whether it's 60-40, you can argue the toss depending.
Oh, absolutely right.
But most of our clients, when we're dealing with marketers, I think understand that. I think where sometimes they struggle is getting buy-in from different stakeholders in their organizations, and whether it is finance or whether it is C-suite or whether it is, and you're right, like I think a lot of this stuff is sales-led, right? So in this complex B2B space, sales-led organizations, but therefore there's that kind of often the imbalance internally, and the marketers might not necessarily kind of get the equal ear of, say, the CEO or the MD.
Yeah, absolutely right. And we still see it as well. Again, I refer back to our B2B Outlook report earlier on. The last time, so when we ran that study last year, we could see that over 25% of the respondents were still spending less than a quarter of their budget on brand, right? So there's still, whilst I say the conversation is, and clearly the conversation, the discourse is changing, we've still got a lot of work to do there. I think the other thing that drives that as well is that there's an awful lot. Particularly when you think about the sort of tech sector, there's a lot of businesses that have scaled up very, very quickly within this space that have done so without really spending an awful lot of money on marketing, right? There was a product need that was identified there by the founder. They've deployed it. They've started to build and scale the business. And then they reach a certain stage, if you like, where we're not growing anymore. I need to fill the pipe. I need more leads. And that's where their journey in marketing goes from, I need pamphlets for an exhibition, to I need some demand gen. But the conversation there with those types of businesses needs to flip very quickly from, okay, we can help to support that, but unless you're doing this other piece as well, which you've never had to do before, by the way, well, you're going to have an issue in the longer term.
And we've picked up a lot of businesses at that exact juncture, and it's because we're in the SEO, Google Ads, paid social space, a lot of LinkedIn activity, and it's the classic conversation, which is marketer reaches out, and we've done pretty well to date, trade shows, conferences, sales team going out, whatever it might be. Got some good news. We've just got all this budget, which we want to run a campaign to generate some leads for the sales team. And it's really hard to then re-educate and kind of go, but you're selling complex ERP software that, has a 3 to 5 year kind of contract. Generally, there's only this many number of businesses in the market. They're not punching, looking for that particular search term in Google every month. The volumes just aren't there. You need to get out there and educate that market and meet them at their kind of terms. But it's definitely a challenge. Like what do you see working? Like your best clients that are generally kicking goals, smashing it. Yeah. What kind of approach are they taking in 2023?
I think there's a couple of things here for me in the B2B space. The first is that we're consistently now challenging this sort of notion of leads and what would be called an MQL, so a marketing qualified lead. The data will tell us, and it doesn't matter who you are and how big your brand is, only around 3% of the people coming to your website are going to fill out a form. And as marketers, all too often we're obsessed with that, right? I just need leads. I need more MQLs. But the reality is that the bulk of the people coming to your website don't want to fill out a form. I mean, I'm going to put my hand up now. I don't want to. I don't want to receive 56 emails from you over the course of the next 3 months.
Well, Stuart, in preparing for this pod, I went onto your website to download the report, and I was going to download it, and then I was asking for my mobile number, and I was like, just not.
I'm not going to do it. I know. And it's funny, right? That's a different discussion. But
I'm not really in your target market though either.
As well, and as with most agencies as well, you spend so much time on the client work that sometimes we need to reflect it back into our own site. It's on the agenda, by the way, so go back and have a look in 6 months' time. Where I was going to go on that was, so if we accept the fact that only 3% are going to fill out the form, what are we doing about the 97%? Now, the great thing in the B2B space is that there is intent data available to us. We can identify, not on an individual level, but we can certainly identify at an account level who's coming to your site. So the smarter, I think, and the more progressive marketers are recognizing, okay, those people have gone to my site for a reason. Do I care if they filled out a form or not? What I should care about as a marketer is that I can identify the account that is going there, and I can now look to go back and influence the buying party within that account on the basis that that intent, if you like, is the new inbound for us. So we used to be fixated on inbound inquiry and getting people to put up their hands and give us their details. Let's step back from that and accept the fact that the people don't want to do that anymore. What I can do, though, is identify the intent that is out there in market, anonymous, as I said, but not anonymous at an account level. And then it's our job to be able to stitch that back together, to build the programs out and to build out the targeting, etc., to reach the individuals from within the buying group in that account and ensure that the sales team have an understanding of this as well, particularly in those sort of higher value, more complex arenas, so that they can get on the front foot as well. They know that business X has been showing intent, and I've had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 signals that they're interested in our business because they keep coming back to the website. I need to reach out and I need to get on the front foot with them, and that's where I think the sort of real smarts come from now within the B2B space, recognizing that we're seeing a lot of clients ungating assets that used to be gated.
Yeah, I think I don't know if they actually were at the forefront of that, but they definitely kind of got the reputation for it, which was Atlassian, who kind of took that more B2C approach to content to the B2B world. And we we mix it up, right? Like we still have, like even on the Rocket website, a lot of content will still be gated, some won't. For clients, it's still a judgment call based on the value of that data versus the content. And I don't think you're going to lean towards all or nothing. I think it is just about the value you're giving. And I think the report you're giving away on your website, if you can get data for that, and you can always test it as well, right?
Absolutely, you can. And I mean, there's two things as well there that sort of drive some of the thinking around ungating for us now. One is to say that if I've got an organization that is researching the types of product that we sell, wouldn't I prefer that it's us that's educating them?
Yeah.
And by providing the asset to them ungated, they're more likely to consume it from me. So that's a positive. I think the other is again, this sort of fixation around an MQL. We know if we accept the fact that there is a buying party attached, so it's not just one individual. My MQL is just one person, right? It's one individual from within the organization. So I need to an extent remove my sort of fixation on that. We were talking to a CMO last week who was very clear on this. She said that she said, Stuart, unless I have, and she talks about it as multi-threading, unless I have the sales team have meetings with 3 individuals within an organization, we don't count it as an opportunity. Because when it's only one, I'm not engaging with a buying group or a buying party. Once we have had 3 meetings with separate individuals within that business, or 3 collectively together, I know that this is a real opportunity now, and we've got work to do to convert it. So
interesting point. Nice term too. And I think, we were talking before we jumped onto the pod, about a physical event that you're at, right? And it is same as a lot of the work that we do as a business. Sometimes you run a webinar, or you put a pod out like this, and someone reaches out, says, "Hey, the time's right. Loved what you're talking about." And then sometimes it's many years where I've seen you guys around, and, our contract's up with our agency, and, we're in the B2B space ourselves, and it's just the way the world works. And if you do take that 95/5 rule seriously, there'll be people out there looking at your product, considering it. They might be under contract for another 18 months with your competitor, right? So
yeah, exactly. It's interesting then in terms of the measurement that you put around some of these. So, for example, I mean, you used the example of webinars, and we've had conversations in the past with people who've said, "I need more leads. We're going to run a webinar." And I'm not sure that that's the right approach here, because the webinar, if you get this right from an educational perspective as well, is not necessarily going to drive a lead result for you tomorrow. It is going to do something longer term for you from a brand perspective. And so getting those measurement pieces right, I think one of the mistakes that we see is the activity and the outcome being misaligned. And our job as an agency, obviously, is to have the right discussions there to say, okay, if that's the activity, then the way that you're measuring it is wrong, or if that's the outcome that you're looking for, then the activity is not necessarily going to deliver that. So we need to sort of pivot around that.
That kind of comes back to your point before around being 10 years in BMW and then jumping across back into agency land and having this exposure to all these different categories, right? And it's the same, I think, probably for both of us at Rocket and Green Hat. We kind of have that perspective, right? Where if you are dealing with a marketing team that's having that issue with sales, or is trying to kind of see webinars as a way of generating MQLs that in 3 months' time are going to lead to SQLs, kind of going, well, it's not really how it's working for other 20 clients or 10 clients that have done the same thing over the last couple of years. In terms of that data piece, to know that a certain company is interested in content, you guys are just doing that through CRM. Is that kind of right? Or
we use so there are a number of ways you can get at this for clients, for example, that have the 6 Sense platform. We're using the intent data that they have access to. We work very closely with organizations, with businesses like Bombora as well, who can provide that intent data through to us. And where it becomes really powerful is when I can start to stitch together first-party intent, so what's happening on your site, and then the third-party intent as well. So in fact, I'll do it the other way around. So start with the third-party intent, so I can see that a business is showing intent for a particular product or a particular category, but they're not coming to your site yet.
Yeah.
Once I can then combine those two things together and say, now I can see that the intent is happening on your site as well. Things are escalating there, right? They're reaching a different stage of research. And for some of our clients now, where we're actually starting to sort of push and provoke this out to is to say, okay, what are the intent signals that happen before the intent signals? So we call it pre-intent. So if, for example, we can see that a business is starting to employ certain types of individuals within the organization, it's suggestive that they're going on a particular journey from a tech perspective that is going to ultimately lead to them needing the type of product you sell. So from a pre-intent perspective, the job there is to be serving them up brand and educational messages so that when they actually get to that decision, now, okay, we're ready to move forward. The organization is now ready for this from a purchase perspective. Your brand or your business is the first one that they're actually going to talk to. You're the one that they're familiar with. So I think that there's still a lot of growth for us from deploying that type of data with the tech enablement that we now have to really to really provide meaningful dialogue between businesses, so the seller and the potential buyer. I like to look at that to say at the moment a lot of your activity is waiter based. So we're waiting. You're sort of waiting to see that they're interested, and then sort of serving up as you would in a restaurant. Where we would like to see this is more of a sort of butler analogy, where I've actually realised what it is that you're looking for before you actually realised it. Before I can serve these communications up to you in advance. And I think that's cool. I think that's exciting.
How does that, because the next area I wanted to talk about was account-based marketing, ABM. Like, how does that, is that, or would that be a little bit different once you're actually more proactive going out to an organization where you think there's a fit?
Look, yes, everything that we've talked about so far cascades down into account-based marketing. Account-based marketing, there are three levels of it, which I'll get to in a minute. But I mean, essentially, when you distill it down, in terms of what account-based marketing is about, it is about focus or alignment of the business on a specific number of accounts or businesses that sit within or reside within their ICP, within their ideal customer profile, that we're agreed and aligned that we're going after. Now, within the B2B space, you should be able to do that. If you don't have a clearly defined ICP, you can't embark on an ABM program. Or we actually call it ABX now. I don't like the term account-based marketing. And the reason for that is that ABX, account-based experience, requires absolute alignment between all facets of the organization, sales, marketing, and customer experience teams, if you have that, right? Where you then get to, and this is going to come down to sort of deal sizes and the type of business you are, is whether we're running a one-to-one ABM play, a one-to-few, or a one-to-many. And so if I give you an example of that, if I was working in a category where I was looking to convert, let's say, defence, so within government. The process of doing that and converting defence, if I'm in the tech space, tech sector, is a significant play, right? This is a 2 to 3 year play. Defence becomes my market, so my audience is people that work within that business or within the buying group within that business, and I'm going to build and deploy a strategy that is specific to that business and to the buying party that exists within that one business. We work with some clients where their one-to-one focus there may be 5, there may be 10 accounts that they're looking to convert over a period of time. You then may take that up to a one-to-few, where we say, okay, we have a cluster of accounts that are in the same sector, as an example, where we're going to build out experiences specifically for them. And so I've got maybe within a one-to-few space, I'm providing communications out that are personalized down to that cluster of maybe 10, 20, 30 organizations. And then outside of that sort of more one-to-many play, where very much I'm focusing on all of those within the ICP, but all of those that were within the ICP specifically that are showing intent for me, because I'm focusing on the intent because I need to be able to drive the revenue through for the organization. But outside of that, I may have a brand play that's running on top of that across my ICP as well. But the most important part here from an ABM perspective, and this is where we see ABM typically, the biggest difficulties that organizations have within the ABM is that it's marketing led and it's not organizational led. It requires sales.
I love the ABX acronym. Is that a Green Hat thing, or is that a kind of industry?
It's actually not. I mean, yeah, let's put a TM after it and say powered by Green Hat, but no, it's not.
We'll cut this out of the pod. Yeah. Is that a Green Hat thing? Yes, it is.
No, it's not. And we're seeing. Look, if you go on and jump onto sort of Google, there are all sorts of extensions of that acronym.
Can get Rocket to buy the keyword ABX.
Yeah, and I think ABE is the other one I saw the other day. Account-based everything.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting, though, because when you distill it back, everything we do in the B2B from a B2B perspective should be account-based, right? Because you're not dealing necessarily with an individual. You are dealing, yes, there are individuals there that we need to influence, but I'm dealing, doesn't matter, SME, mid-size, enterprise, and it's a business that I'm communicating to, or reaching, I should say.
I guess, what are you seeing from a digital media perspective in 2023? Like, if we kind of talk about the last 5 years, and probably there is this movement towards the 95/5 rule, and probably a better understanding of the science behind investing in brand versus kind of performance activities. How are you seeing, paid LinkedIn, display advertising, Google Ads? Has that changed much from what your side of the fence?
I think the biggest thing for us there, again, is the ingestion of things like intent data to be able to power that and to ensure that we're delivering a more personalized experience, if for want of a better way of sort of describing that, where ingestion of the intent data essentially allows me to be able to see again, okay, where is this person at in terms of their buying, the buying decision? Therefore, what are the messages that I want to serve to them? So is it top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel? So I think we're getting much more sophisticated around that because of the tech. So the mix may not be changing dramatically, but what we're doing within that is we are seeing, we are seeing more clients, and we're actually getting a lot more success from this in terms of moving outside of what I would call traditional sort of B2B environments. We use a lot of Meta for our clients, and we use it very, very successfully as well now. They're able to reach audiences at scale for us. Yeah, it's you get into this debate, but that's personal me, not business me. The pandemic has blurred all of those things. I'm sitting here at home today working. I'm consuming business media in my house. I'm consuming consumer media while I'm at work, right? And so I think those two things have become so blurred anyway. I don't think there's any issue with me as a managing director of an agency receiving communications that are relevant to me whilst I'm in a Facebook environment. Am I less responsive there? No, I'm not.
We've never had a problem with that. Like, I think you and I agree wholeheartedly on the differences between B2B and B2C, but when it comes to targeting individuals, it's B2H, right? And I think sometimes we struggle to effectively target for certain clients in B2B and Meta, but then in other times we can do it really easily and really well. And using first-party data, remarketing, retargeting type of audiences. We had a really successful campaign in B2B, which was 80% Meta. And in fairness, it wasn't a complex B2B purchase. We're targeting kind of smaller business owners. But I think it's more about your targeting there than the actual platform itself.
Absolutely, it is. And that's where, and again, TikTok comes into play here as well, right? Even for the right B2B brands, is that potentially an effective environment? In fact, I know it is, because we use this for clients as well, and where I'm able to reach an audience and a lookalike audience within there using our first party data to be able to power that. At the end of the day, our job is to ensure that we are connecting our clients with their end consumers within the buying party, and where that is happening, yes, there is a contextual relevance piece that we need to be very conscious of, and that comes into play. But first and foremost, I want to ensure that we're putting the brand in front of the audience in the right way.
That's right. Last theme, I guess I wanted to dig into. We touched on it a little bit, but content. Like, what's happening? What are you seeing with content? Like, we talked a little bit about gating and ungating. Talked a little bit about webinars, and probably just resetting expectation as to what data from webinars is. But your best performing clients, the ones that are smashing it, doing great work, like, what's the approach to content? How's content strategy and changed over the last couple of years?
Look, I think first within the B2B space, content is king, right? The big difference and the big change, I would say, is that there there's still a role, and there is a role for your white papers and your ebooks and that sort of longer form content. What we are seeing is, I think, push and provocation from the agency, but also from a lot of the CMOs to turn what was historically really dry content into something that is much, much more engaging.
Yeah.
A lot of that long form content that existed in the past was so dense and so technical, and ultimately, I think, impenetrable at times as well. So there's a genuine, I think, recognition and reflection there within the B2B space that we need to treat that in a very different way to make it so much more engaging. I think turning it into snackable content as well, and there's, all of the marketing science again will talk to this sort of reduction in time that we're sort of focusing and are attentive. So this sort of desire as well, and this drive and need to make it to serve that content up in a much more snackable and consumable fashion. I think then also in more interesting ways to do it. I mean, we're sitting here on a podcast now, converting that content into something that can be consumed by me in an audio fashion, as an example, has its appeal. Where I don't necessarily want to sit here and read 10 pages, but I'll certainly consume that if I think it's interesting on my way.
Well, we're going to chop this up and put it onto TikTok. We're going to go viral, you and I, with the B2B in 2023 in little bits of TikTok.
I'm trying to sort of work out the reaction from my kids if they ever stumbled across Dad on TikTok. I think they'd be horrified. I think they'd be horrified.
I had Lindsay and Tristan from Cello on a little while back on the pod, and Lindsay mentioned Wunderman Thompson, who do an excellent kind of EDM, and that content is available on the site, and it is so snackable, and it's so easy to absorb, and it's just snippets of the key findings, and they send stuff out in such a lovely manner, and just goes to show that EDMs don't have to be dense and reports don't have to be dense. And
agreed.
Yeah,
agree. And ultimately, if what that then does is inspire me to go and find out more, then it's done a really good job for me as well. So I think that's the other important part. There is a need at some stage within, and it's very much at the bottom of the funnel, to provide all of the rational technical information and the spec sheets and that dense, heavy information, because ultimately someone's going to have to sign off on this and ensure that they've done the due diligence. I think the difference is that sort of recognition now that has no role at the top and largely in the middle of the funnel as well, right? So,
yeah, it's really interesting observation. Mate, it's been an awesome chat. Last question. What career advice would you give to an in-house marketer?
What career advice would I give?
Best piece of career advice.
I think for me as marketers, the one thing that we always have to be is inquisitive. Like, you need to have an inquisitive mind, and when you are so expose yourself to as much as you can. Read the marketing science. Like, we should have a view on that and its application within our businesses. Read the marketing press, and ensure that you're across the new trends out there, but also that you have an opinion. And then I would say, get out of your business and just go and hang out with real people as well, because I think sometimes as marketers, and I know I did this to an extent when I was at BMW, you lose sight at times of what's going on out in the real world. So it's really important to get out there and look at what's going on more broadly, culturally, than just within your space and your organizations. Go on your nice luxury holidays, but make sure you go to the Royal Show as well. Get out to the regional and rural areas of Australia. Someone said to me they were talking last month at a function, and they said, look, they still whenever they bought the AFR, they'd buy a tabloid as well, and they'd consume both of them because they were both as important to understand what's really sort of going on out there in the marketplace.
But it's so true. There was it was an infographic. And it was, I don't know, it might have been 10 years ago or so. It's produced, pretty sure it's produced by an agency. This was when North Bondi Italian was kind of the restaurant in Sydney at Bondi. And basically it surveyed marketers, agency people, and it was kind of in the last 6 months, how many of you have been to North Bondi Italian? It was like 87%.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of in the last month, how many have you been to North Bondi? Like 53%. And then the same survey was in the last year, how many of you have been to Parramatta? And, 34%. How many of you have ever been to Parramatta? And it's 50%. Like literally more people have been to North Bondi Italian in the last month than had ever been to Parramatta. And Parramatta is not exactly very far from Sydney. And so, the idea of really understanding, regional Australia or rural Australia and
it's perspective, right? Perspective's so important here.
Yeah.
And so I think an inquisitive and a genuinely open mind here is so important in terms of what we do.
Good one, mate. Thanks so much for your time. It's been great having you on the pod.
Yeah, that was cool. I really enjoyed the chat, James. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Stuart.